Now, this week's ATM fraud incident has brought into light just how unprepared quite a few companies are to deal with cybercrime effectively. Let's look at some numbers. When PriceWaterHouseCoopers looked into this matter in its latest economic crime survey early in the year, it found a sharp rise of 23% in the number of reported cybercrime incidents among respondents in South Africa. A third of the firms surveyed had been affected by some kind of cybercrime. About 16%, however, had absolutely no clue whatsoever if they were victims. Now, surprisingly, of those affected, 3% of them had seen losses of over $100 million. 14% couldn't even quantify their losses, even though they knew they had been hit somehow. Now, there's a comparable pattern that we see on cybercrime in Kenya. A third of respondents had not only been affected by cybercrime in the last 2 years, but they had also suffered significant costs while doing so. That's up from just over 20% of those surveyed in 2014. In both South Africa and in Kenya, over 70% of companies surveyed expressed a complete lack of confidence in the authorities' ability to respond effectively to cybercrime. Early in the week, for example, in the wake of all the swift hacks we've seen this week, I asked the governor of Kenya Central Bank if any Kenyan banks have been victims of hacks through that network. Here's what he had to say.
The swift hacks, all I can say here is that it has been very, very embarrassing, extremely embarrassing for those jurisdictions where this has happened. And all jurisdictions, and I'm talking about my peers around the world, meet each other, we discuss some of these things. All of us are very cognizant as to the impact of this in our jurisdictions. So I don't want to say any more, except to say that we are very cognizant of the concerns that you raise in asking this question. So I really don't want to say any more beyond that.
Right, then let's get more details on the cybercrimes environment, so to speak. In South Africa, Angelo Coppola is live in Johannesburg right now. Angelo, set the stage for us here. Aside from this survey that PwC does, are there any other large-scale studies that tell us exactly how big a problem cybercrime is in South Africa?
Well, the latest credit card fraud statistics come from the South African Banking Risk Information Centre, and that's for 2015. That's 6 months ago, or 6 months old. It showed that credit card fraud was down some 28%, from $30 million lost to $21 million lost in the 2015 period. On the other hand, debit card fraud seems to have jumped by 8%. So it appears that the South African businesses, or at least the financial services sector, is doing something right locally. Not surprisingly, though, financial institutions won't easily publish successful cyber attacks, and they cite security reasons for that. But one case that does spring to mind, because it got so much airplay at the time, was in 2012, and that was the attack on South Africa's Post Bank. It lost around $4 million to a cyber criminal network then. It was a similar attack to the one that happened with Standard Bank in Tokyo a week ago now. In that case, in other words, the Post Bank case, the South African authorities caught the criminals, prosecuted them, and they're serving hefty jail sentences at the moment, Roman.
Indeed, that's one specific case, though, Angelo. This PwC survey makes it clear that as far as companies are concerned, they don't trust the authorities to actually do a proper job. So, in aggregate, do the police services, do the prosecution officers have the manpower, the training and the tools they need to actually investigate and successfully prosecute those behind cybercrimes?
Bottom line is, those cyber police people are few and very far between, and they're thinly stretched as well. They're dealing with anything from phishing scams to online fraud, identity theft and the like, and it's a specialist skill, so it's likely and it's highly sought after in the private sector. And the salary disparity between the two sectors is huge. So anyone who's in the private sector is likely to stay there, unless, of course, they're performing a civic duty. On the other hand, the challenge for the judiciary is that they can't prosecute someone they can't catch. And even if a suspect is apprehended, it's unlikely that a public prosecutor will have the specialist skills to actually successfully prosecute a suspect who's likely to have a heavy-hitting, very expensive defense attorney. Raman?
Indeed, we'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you for that. That's Angelo Coppola live in Johannesburg. Should be pretty interesting to follow, of course, the evolution of the cybercrimes and cybersecurity bill published for review late last year in South Africa. It will inform that debate moving forward.